Hi, my name's Vince Sheehan, and today I'd like to talk about Apocalypse Now, the 1979 war film directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starring Martin Sheen, Marlon Brando and Dennis Hopper. I'd like to go through this film looking at the structure as well as some of the themes that crop up in it. Now, of course, this film is rightly regarded as one of the greatest films of the 1970s, one of the greatest war films ever made, and of course the story of its production was fraught with difficulties and is known in its own right. But in terms of the film itself, it's based on Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, and it's transferred from the Belgian Congo of that novel to the Vietnam War. It centres around a soldier who has been given a mission to go and assassinate a colonel in the American military who has gone rogue and is doing things his own way and has become insane and is committing unspeakable evil. And essentially the film's about a journey to this Colonel Kurtz up a river. The film, quite unusually, is in 7 acts, and each of the acts focus around a location along the river. And the first act is centred around the mission Captain Willard is given. He wakes up after this dream of napalm, destruction, even premonitions of the end of the film, which is quite interesting. Some rather sinister statues and himself in with this face paint on, and he's clearly in a terrible place psychologically, mentally. He makes the point that when he's home he wants to be back in Nam, but when he's here he wants to be back home. So he's kind of in this hell really, and he's looking for something to do basically to stop him going crazy. And even though the film is about the madness of Kurtz, you do get the feeling that Willard isn't far away from losing it himself. And of course Kurtz isn't the only source of insanity and evil in the film. Anyway, Willard wakes up in his room in Saigon, and he's given this mission by the top brass to go and assassinate Colonel Kurtz. We hear his voice on the tape, and he sounds pretty creepy, talking about snails going up razor blades, etc. And he's told to go and terminate his command with extreme prejudice, as the famous line goes, by that sinister character Jerry. I think it's the only line he says. So Captain Willard goes off and he has to go and find Kurtz, who they believe is in Cambodia, at the end of this river. And then we're into Act 2, and at the beginning of Act 2 we're introduced to Captain Willard's crew on this journey. We have the chief, who is in charge of the boat. He steers the vessel. We have Mr. Clean, who's this young 17-year-old kid who is from the Bronx. We have the chef, who's he's a cook, but he's on the verge of a nervous breakdown throughout this film. And we have Lance, who's like this surfer dude. And this unlikely bunch starts sailing up the river, but they need to be taken a bit further up by a squad of helicopters. So they have to meet this guy called Colonel Kilgore, and the act really centres around this figure, Colonel Kilgore. They encounter him blitzing a Vietnamese village, and for Kilgore and his crew it's all kind of like a game really. They don't see the people there bombing really as humans at all, and they're just really kind of hardened and cruel, and there's this kind of machismo about what they do. And for Kilgore in particular, he seems to have fallen on his feet in Vietnam. He seems to love it there. And it's here, through all this brutality and this killing, which they perpetrate in a flippant way almost. I mean, they play the Ride of the Valkyries famously as they bomb everything in sight. You sense that good and evil is not cut and dried in this film. Evil is found everywhere, and certainly in the American army. Anyway, eventually, after the whole area is napalmed by some fighter jets, that's where Kilgore famously says, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." We move on to Act 3, and Act 3 centres around this show put on for these soldiers along the river, a bit further up the river. And it's here that the kind of soldiers' lust and the desire for these girls doing this kind of strip show spills over, and chaos ensues, and they clamber onto the stage, etc., and the girls have to be escorted off on this helicopter. And again, it's just another picture of the kind of craziness and insanity of this war. And Act 4 is one of the most difficult parts of the film to watch. Again, it focuses on the evil found in the American army, but including the group who are sailing up the river, who we see, I guess, as the protagonists, the good guys in a sense, but they're certainly a mixed bunch as well. And they come across this junk boat, which they suspect might be taking weapons to somewhere else, and there's nothing there, but they just slaughter everyone on the boat. It really is a sickening sight. These people going about their business just kind of cut down in a hail of machine gun bullets. Act 5 circles around this bridge at the end of the river, and in a surreal kind of way, this is like a hellhole, but it's all lit up with this flak and this these gunshots. Looks like there's fireworks around. The music goes a bit circusy as well, and it's like a really weird dream, this part of the film. Nothing's quite as it seems, and chaos just reigns at this point just by the border of Cambodia. This bridge keeps being destroyed and built the next day, and sheer chaos, which is another theme in this film. You know, chaos looms large in this place. All, of course, a foretaste of Kurtz himself. The next act, the characters approach Colonel Kurtz himself. They're now in Cambodia, but they're attacked on the way. And first of all, Clean is killed, and as we hear this kind of audio recording from his aunt, you know, you see him lying dead, which is quite touching. But then you remember that Clean was actually the guy who started shooting on those innocent people on the boat just a few minutes before, so that kind of creates this tension in your mind. And then Chief is killed with a spear through him. And in the final act, Captain Willard reaches Kurtz. And Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando, of course, this guy who looms in the shadows, and he has this kind of sick logic in his head. He has this twisted view of things. It seems at some point during this inoculation program he was part of with the Special Forces, something snapped in his mind, and he hasn't been the same since. And he's created this atmosphere of hell around him. And it seems he's expecting Willard to come, and he's expecting Willard to kill him. And Kurt seems to want to be killed, I guess, to be freed from this torment, this hell. And by the way, here we meet this photojournalist character as well, who seems to be obsessed with Kurtz and is clearly mad himself. And then after Kurtz is killed, Willard goes, and he's the one who's now adored, but he walks through and goes off. and we hear Kurtz's last words again, the horror, which incidentally is also the last words in Conrad's book. So what are we to make of all this? Well, obviously it's a fantastic film, but it's a film worth seeing a few times to really get to grips with it. It's a fairly long film, and you can get a bit lost in it, but perhaps having some understanding of the structure of this film helps with these staging posts, these stops, these acts along the river. And it speaks lots about evil, of course, the evil which every human is capable of. Now, Kurtz is particularly evil, we're told that, but we actually find in the course of the film that the actions of the so-called normal soldiers are just as evil, or they can be. It's a lot about insanity and craziness. The whole Vietnam War is seen as this mad, absurd folly which these people are caught up in, and they're mad themselves. Particularly that scene near the end where Willard is looking for the CO around the bridge. It's just this vision of madness. And of course Kurtz is a particular kind of madman, still incredibly with it mentally, but at the same time broken in his mind. And Captain Willard is always on the brink of insanity himself. We see that right from the beginning of the film. And there's something of the dark heart in Willard as well. So madness, evil. It's interesting, the poetry Kurtz quotes from T.S. Eliot, "We are the hollow men, we are the straw men." Evil, of course, in a theological sense, is the absence of good. So a sense that there's just there's a nothingness at the heart of this film. Evil kind of is, in a sense, a deprivation of something. Also, interestingly, these statues you see every now and then, these heads, and it almost seems that there's an evil force, a spiritual force, an evil force which seems to possess this conflict, this part of the world Kurtz and Willard and the others find themselves in. Kurtz himself perhaps has been brought under the spell of this evil power and is broken by it, and that's probably why he wants to be slaughtered at the end. So Apocalypse Now, such a powerful film, which really gets to the heart of the dark side of human nature, the destruction, the evil, and the madness that can cause, and the discord within ourselves. The horror we can make around us as well, of course. Thank you for watching this. There's a brief slideshow with the structure and themes just after this. Thank you, bye.